Hi readers, welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads, and welcome to Women's History Month. If you don't know, March is Women's History Month, and this month, each week I'm going to do, just like I did with Black History Month, a video about celebrating women authors or women in history. But it's going to mostly be book related. This week's edition is the Ukraine edition, and originally I'd had something much different set aside to talk about today, but if you are not aware, on Friday the 28th of February, President Zelensky of Ukraine went to the Oval Office and met with Trump and Vance, who verbally attacked and berated him before finally ending the meeting and essentially kicking Zelensky out. I, among many, was horrified by that the United States President and Vice President would treat an ally and a guest that way. And I woke up this morning, and instead of watching my local news, I watched BBC News, and it seems all of Europe is horrified as well. So today, I will be highlighting 3 women authors from Ukraine. The first one is one that, if you followed along, I've covered before, because The Unwomanly Face of War by Svetlana Alexievich was my nonfiction read for January. And this is an oral history of women in World War II. This is about Soviet women, and at the time, Ukraine was a part of the Soviet Union. It obviously is no longer. But if you didn't follow along, this is what it's about. Oh, let me just emphasize here. Many of the women in this book are from what is now Ukraine. The Unwomanly Face of War is the long-awaited English translation of Svetlana Alexievich's first book, a groundbreaking oral history of women in World War II across Europe and Russia. Alexievich chronicles the experience of Soviet women who fought on the front lines, on the home front, and in the occupied territories. These women, more than 1 million in total, were nurses and doctors, pilots, tank drivers, machine gunners, and snipers. They battled alongside men, and yet, after the victory, their sacrifices were forgotten. Alexievich traveled thousands of miles and visited more than 100 towns to record these women's stories. Together, this symphony of voices reveals a different aspect of the war, the everyday details of life in combat left out of the official histories. The Unwomanly Face of War is a powerful and poignant account of the central conflict of the 20th century, a kaleidoscopic portrait of the human side of war, and it is every bit that. This was a fantastic read. I like to read about women in war, and I will be talking more about women in war and women and war throughout the rest of this year. I'd started on a project on that in 2024, and I kind of got derailed. But this year, I'm going to try to get back at it in a way that works for me. Next up, I cannot remember where I heard about this book and why I bought it. I bought it in conjunction with another book called Black Butterflies, which is about another part of the former Soviet Union. But this one, the one I want to highlight, is called The Death of a Soldier Told by His Sister by Olesya Kromeychuk. I apologize on my pronunciation. I want to share a little bit more about this. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to this. I've got so many books to read, but this is one that I've set up over on one of my stacks to read soon. He died on the front line in eastern Ukraine. A soldier now, but a brother too, born with the heart of an artist. In a vivid blend of memoir, essay, and folklore, Olesya Kromeychuk tries to come to terms with the death of her brother and the Russian invasion of her homeland. As a Ukrainian, a woman, a historian, and a sister. Poignant and searching, The Death of a Soldier Told by His Sister is an intimate depiction of grief, a powerful reckoning with political violence, and a fierce commitment to honesty in life, in death, and in memory. I rarely read blurbs from authors, but Philippe Sands, best-selling author of East, West Street and The Rat Line, I've not read either of those, calls this a remarkable, intimate memoir, not history, but now, not distant, but proximate, not imaginary, but real. And I want to pull out a few excerpts from this and read them to you. Mostly from the preface, but let me start with this. Her brother, Volodymyr Pavlov, died on the front line in eastern Ukraine in 2017. He served in the Ukrainian Armed Forces for almost 2 years before he was killed by shrapnel near Popasna, Luhansk region. He was 42 when he died. So in her preface, Alicia says, Russia's war against Ukraine did not start on 24 February 2022. It started in 2014 with the occupation of Crimea and parts of the Donbass. The reason why the Kremlin was able to escalate it in 2022 was because Russia got away with violating international law and invading a sovereign state unpunished. The world responded with little more than deep concern to the campaigns of aggression and terror conducted by Russia for 8 years in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin felt emboldened by the West doing business as usual, and the revenue from oil and gas financed not only the continuation of the war, but also its escalation to full-scale invasion. Because we did nothing in 2014, Russia was emboldened to take action in 2022, and that is how this book starts. I failed to see how Russia could be less emboldened after what happened on Friday, February 28th, 2025. The next book is one that I picked up last week, I think Tuesday, and it is a book that I picked up for my Women in War project. It is called Looking at Women, Looking at War, A War and Justice Diary by Victoria Amelina. I did not pick out anything to read in here from that, but I will read you the blurb. When Russia started the full-scale war against Ukraine on February 24th, 2022, Victoria Amelina was busy writing a novel, taking part in the country's literary scene, and parenting her son. Suddenly, she became someone new, a war crimes researcher and the chronicler of extraordinary women like herself who were joining the resistance. Her heroines include Evgenia, a prominent lawyer turned soldier, Alexandra, who documented tens of thousands of war crimes and won a Nobel Peace Prize in 2022, and Yulia, a librarian who helped uncover the abduction and murder of a children's book author. Everyone in Ukraine knew that Amelina was documenting the war. She photographed the ruins of schools and other cultural centers. She recorded the testimonies of survivors and eyewitnesses to atrocities. And she slowly turned back into a storyteller, writing what would become this book. On the evening of July 1st, 2023, Amelina died from injuries sustained by a Russian missile attack. She was 37. Looking at Women, Looking at War was not finished at the time of Amelina's death, and is published here in its incomplete form. Honest, intimate, and wry, Looking at Women, Looking at War is an incredible account of the ravages of war and the cost of resistance for all time. I will probably get to this before I get to that, because of my Women in War series. I really look forward to reading this. I think I have more books by women about Ukraine. I just don't know where they all are, so I settled on these three today. And my goal this month is maybe to not focus on the amount of books I have, but what's in those books. So, or individuals who've played a huge part in women's history. I'm really excited for this month, and this has been a short video, and I will try to be better prepared next week, do a little bit more research, but this was kind of an off the cuff response to what's happening in real life. And if you've stayed with me this long, as always, thank you for sticking with me on my journey, and happy reading.